How do traditionalist Catholics view other Christians? Great question. So thanks to my friend Allison who asked me this question a while ago, and I thought I'd make this video in response. So one thing that you should be aware of is that traditional Catholics do not go out of the way to try to think about how we have things in common with other Christians. That is simply not our approach. Indeed, one of the things that makes us uniquely traditionalist Catholic as opposed to like more mainline or modern Catholic would be that we think that looking for these things in common has gone too far, and that real things that affect theology, real differences that make us uniquely Catholic, and indeed in many cases, or even salvation issues, are being cast aside and neglected. So we see that whole approach of looking at things as very negative. That being said, we do see different denominations differently, and we like some more than others. So, without further ado, how do traditional Catholics view other denominations? So, let's start with the ones we have the most positive view of, and that would be the Eastern Orthodox. No, we would not find modern mainline Catholics as being um, the closest one to us, and indeed, I'm going to need two different sections for that one because not we don't view all mainline modern traditional mainline Catholics the same either. But the closest people group we would see closest to us would be the Eastern Orthodox. There's a number of reasons for this. So, unlike Protestants, we share we have a lot of sacramental theology in common, just views on justification in common. Furthermore, it is seen that we view the Orthodox Church as not having had these massive changes in liturgy and theology as happened after the Second Vatican Council in the Catholic Church. That said, we would see ourselves as being quite different from them in that they do reject the papacy, the Filioque clause, etc., and other matters. That being said, while we do disagree with them, and not that we love the mainline Catholics for agreeing with the Pope in Rome. We believe in that too. Whether you're a Sidvacantist, whether you're an SSPX or a Fraternity of St. Peter, you believe in principle in the See of Rome, the papacy. In practice, when it comes to day-to-day worship and like being generally sane theologically, we would see the Orthodox Church as Eastern Orthodox Church, and for that matter, and to a lesser extent, the Oriental Orthodox sends monothelite heresy and other similar ancient churches as being the closest to us. For the people who are next closest to us, would probably be very conservative, very conservative, very conservative Novosado Catholics. So now again, I'm using the term Novosado Catholics to refer to Catholics who adhere to the Second Vatican Council. And again, not all we don't see all main Catholics the same. You're going to hear about mainline Catholics later on in this video, further down the line. So, conservative Catholics who they might practice ecumenism, but they believe in the papacy. They believe in all these other things as well that the Eastern Orthodox believe. Plus, hey, they believe in the Pope too, just like us. Yay! Unfortunately, we see themselves. The reason we put them below the Orthodox is that they do adhere to things we regard as salvation issues, as having been infallibly defined by the Catholic Church, that they reject. Notably, they engage in ecumenical worship, which is like a big no-no, and they're very proud of it. They believe that they have changed the liturgy, not as bad as some, but they're willing to put up with things which we are, which we're very much against. How we describe seeing them, we would see them as hoodwinked, maybe bad information, but in some we think they've largely been deceived and scammed. But we think they're great people, a lot of great people there. We are willing to cooperate with them, and they're the first people we would probably. They're literally the first people we think of inviting when we think of inviting a non-traditional Catholic to a traditional Latin Mass. They're the first ones we think they'd really like becoming SSPX and TradCath. Number 3. So the next person down the rung would be the conservative Protestants. So and I'm giving also with a special mention to conservative Anglicans. So are especially close, and conservative Lutherans and High Church and high church denominations. So like Anglicans, Lutherans, who have a more traditional liturgy, more in line with the Mass, a little bit of a stronger sacramental theology, we would consider them quite close, comparatively a little closer than, say, fundamentalist Baptists or Pentecostals. That being said, if you anything that you're willing to conserve in orthodoxy, conservatism, and liturgy, we generally see it as a good thing, especially when it comes to the battle against modern wokeism. Traditional Catholics hate wokeism like there's no tomorrow. We hate the idea. We do not like quote unquote progressive or liberal quote unquote Christianity. Again, it's literally the antithesis. We see that as literally the antithesis of everything we are. Spoiler for who we're going to talk about, who we think is the furthest away from us. um, that being said, we do think a lot of them have bad theology. We do see, but in addition to all these other groups, spoiler, traditional Catholics do not see other Christians as being saved. Period. That is literally, again, outside the church is no salvation. Ecumenical Council of Florence, Bull of Union of the Copts, paragraph 14. We would see Galatians 1 verses 8 through 9 as applying to all other Christian denominations. Essentially, we would see them as heretics, and because they preach sola fide, which contradicts James 2:24. They don't believe in a literal understanding of real presence, which Jesus taught in John 6:35 through to 69. And again, in verses 68, 69, he is willing to turn people away over that. So we see it as a salvation issue. That being said, their understanding of traditional definition of marriage, their adherence, their tendency to adhere to pro-life issues more, etc., and so forth. That is something we strongly identify with. We love how they read the Bible. And that's something we generally greatly admire among conservative Protestants, and how they take it seriously, know their Bible, and it's something it's one of the few things we would try to emulate, though we have a very different understanding of what the Bible is actually saying. But we would still overall regard them as heretics, need to be converted, and we're somewhat wary of inviting them to mass, because unfortunately some traditional Catholics have a scruple of like reaching out to anyone outside of the Catholic world has been giving us a very bad taste in the mouth after Vatican II, essentially. Hopefully that's something what we as traditional Catholics work on a bit more. Next further rung down would be the more liberal denominations. So like liberal Novus Catholics. Believe it or not, I'm not going to. Most traditional Catholics would actually put the liberal Novus Catholics at dead last, because they have done so much to tear down everything we care about, liturgically, theologically. So we're talking like the woke Catholics, starting with who like they want women priests, traditional traditions, the marriage should change, and all religions follow the same God, and you're big time in interfaith everything. Like Jesus is the way, the truth, the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. That's in the gospel. We think you're insane. We think that calling you heretics is being generous. We think that calling you a heretic is being generous in many cases. If you're into that sort of thing, get out. We don't want anything to do with you. We think you are probably either incredibly stupid, sorry to be so disrespectful, or outright malicious, and we're gonna pray for you, but we don't think our prayers are gonna do much good because you're resisting God's grace willfully. And we have a very negative view. Indeed, many of us have been. One of the reasons why we do have groups like the Society of St. Pius X is that so many of us have been bullied out of modern Catholic parishes by these people, because we're in a Catholic church, we want to teach the Catholic faith as that's always been the Catholic faith, and they bully us, harass us, go after our children. I got a lot of stories. Try to prevent us from and harass us for teaching the kids the faith that we were raised in or converted to and wanted, and in some cases they've even actively gone after us to make sure we cannot find places to worship and pray. Indeed, there's a story in my area where a while back the local diocese called up the they called up a local funeral home that we were going to book for a funeral, and said, we're going to boycott you and make sure you got no business if you let this person be buried here. That's a story from my area. So, yeah, we don't have really positive views on you for obvious reasons. And honestly, I'm glad I go to one of the reasons I'm glad to go to SSPX is that I'm able to take a step back from the bickering and fighting with those groups of people. And we really think that you need to stop pretending to be something you're not. That if you're watching this, we think you're not holding the Catholic faith. We think everyone who is outside of the Catholic world who knows anything about Catholicism can tell that you're changing the religion. And we think if you don't like the Catholic faith, you should just found your own religion or join some other religion. Especially in many cases, you don't even qualify as bare generic Christians. Just get out and stop pretending to be something that you're not. Is how we would generally see you. Um, and honestly, we want to keep our distance from you. Believe it or not, you would think that would be the bottom of the barrel for people we have things we have in common with, but it's not. Ladies and gentlemen, woke Protestants. If you are a woke Protestant, like the United Church of Canada, for example, if you're into things like the Sparkle Creed, please Google it. It's blasphemous but funny. Yeah, we think you are the bottom of rung of the bottom of the rung. We see you essentially the same as Nova Scotia Catholics, but with less good sacramental theology and less good understanding of the papacy, essentially. That is essentially how we see you. We do not we think you're more Unitarian, Universalist, more pantheists who've taken over not even a Catholic church, but a Protestant heretical church to be able to begin with. Anyway, you're just heresy upon heresy. Like we see you as a different species, and we think that calling you generically Christian is being incredibly generous. That is how essentially we would see you. Now, again, it varies from denomination to denomination how we see you, and even within a denomination. Think even mainline Catholics. We see you very differently. There are a lot of conservative members of the Catholic hierarchy who are far closer. We think we have a lot of common with. And we will think that hey, you're almost where we are, and you also get people in the mainline Catholic Church who are like, yeah, why exactly are you calling yourself Catholic? It's more identity theft at this point, and that's how we would see like woke liberal Catholics, two very different species essentially. But yeah, and essentially other groups like Mennonites, conservative Mennonites, we would basically file you in your own denomination, whether or not you're conservative or liberal. Probably like the biggest thing. Traditional Catholics, the big thing is we hate wokeism. We hate wokeism, period, full stop. And the closer we are to us when it comes to sacramental theology and ecclesiology, the more we tend to like you and agree with you. Again, we do not, as traditional Catholics, mortalem animos, paragraph 10, prayer in common with interdenominational worship and taking part in the assemblies of non-Catholics is absolutely forbidden to us. We don't go out of our way trying to like see what we have in common with other Christians. That is not our approach. And indeed, it was one of the reasons why I decided to become traditional Catholic, even though I am from a non-Catholic background. And it's one of the reasons I started having misgivings about the ecumenical movement, even when I took part in it. We don't think that, and again, just to wrap up what I'm saying, what I was said before and reiterated, looking at what we have in common is, okay, that's nice, but you're skirting over a lot of important, serious issues that need to be addressed and discussed that are just being shoved under the rug. If Catholics are right about real presence, then it's a salvation, you must believe it. If we're wrong about it, then we're committing idolatry. It's one of the two. It must possibly be accepted or possibly rejected. You can't have both. You can't accept both in the same world, and that is a reality we're very much aware of. That's something we absolutely agree with. Saint veneration is either a gift from God that cannot be neglected without endangering your soul, or it's idolatry. Papacy is either something called, but it's either a something man-made that was made by men to control the church and make it authoritarian and dethrone Christ, or it is in something that was instituted by Jesus Christ, as per Matthew 16:18, confirmed again and by Saint Irenaeus of Lyons in his work against heresies, that we must all be union with the Bishop of Rome. That it's one of the two. You cannot have a middle way, and whatever you think of these things, and I know I'm gonna get some angry anti-Catholic Protestant comments in the background, but I will say this. I have a lot more respect for the anti-Catholic Protestant commentators in my videos than I do with a woke Catholic or someone who says it doesn't matter. If you say it doesn't matter, you're at the bottom of the rung. The anti-Catholic who is attacking Catholic theology is closer to being a traditional Catholic, in my view, than the woke person, even if they're attending the new Mass, even if they are nominally Catholic. I got more hope for salvation from them because they at least care. They at least know that these things matter and need to be discussed. And again, we also think that if you don't address these issues intelligently, we think you're an idiot. We think you're just frustrating and annoying, and we just tell you to go please read a book before you're commenting on anything. And that is something we would also agree with. We want intelligent questions on the Catholic faith. Please, no Mary is Ashura, Jesus is Horus memes. Yeah, I hope to everyone's watching this has no idea what I'm talking about after saying that. But the main point is that we, as traditional Catholics, we don't believe in shoving important theological doctrinal issues under the rug. We think at the very least it throws Jesus, and often ends up throwing up real important salvation issues. So anyway, God bless, and whether or not you are a traditional Catholic or not, I am praying for you. I love you. Hope you continue to watch my videos. Feel free to ask any comments or questions you'd like to see me answer down below. Link to SSPX website down below as always, or at least as I'm trying to get into more of a habit of doing that more. Anyway, God bless. Have a great day.